How's it going, everyone? And in this video, I'm going to be talking about if it's still worth it to get a college degree. And I think this is a great question because, especially with COVID happening right now, a lot of the college experience has changed significantly. And I think it's very wise for a lot of people to take a step back and think critically about the choice to go to college and to, get your 4-year degree at some institution in whatever major. Background on me is that I went to UC Berkeley. I majored in chemical engineering and I finished in 2018. I was also a transfer student, so I went to junior college for 2 years first. And so to jump right into it, I have a list of the pros and cons for deciding to go to college and to get that college degree. I'm going to start with the pros. So in this case, I think, as an objective bystander, having a 4-year college degree shows someone, very strictly speaking, and people can't really argue with this, that you have the ability to follow through on your commitments for 4 years. And based on my professional experience, a lot of people at a lot of companies have pretty high turnover. And so, what that means is I'll hire someone and, a year or 2 years from now, that person will flake and they'll be like, I don't really like this job anymore, or I want to go do a different job, or I want to move somewhere else. And so to a lot of employers, turnover is very expensive, and it costs a lot of money to their HR teams to go out and find a new hire to replace that person and to train that new hire and to get that person up to the same level. So turnover is really expensive. And so having something on paper that you can show to demonstrate that you have the ability to follow through on your commitments and stick there through thick and thin through 4 years means a lot. And so that's what that bachelor's degree means for point number one. Another thing here that I want to say is that getting that bachelor's degree is showing that you can handle a heavy course load. And speaking from my experience, at UC Berkeley doing the chemical engineering program, there were a lot of late nights of studying, and I think almost that my current job is easier than what it was like being an undergrad at Berkeley, because at Berkeley, they didn't care 9 to 5. It didn't matter when it was 5 p.m. You're not going home. You're already at home. You're doing your homework, or you're in a study group. You're in the library. You're gonna need to keep studying. You're gonna need to finish that homework assignment, or you're gonna need to feel adequately prepared for tomorrow's exam. And so it doesn't really matter that it's 5 p.m. You're gonna have to put in the time to make it happen. And so it is a very heavy workload. And it shows that you're someone who's able to continue functioning and deliver on some very intense projects by getting that 4-year degree. Another thing I would say is that that 4-year degree is going to involve a lot of complex and varied classes. So just because I did engineering doesn't mean I'm not also going to be taking classes in English or art or biology or chemistry. There's all these different disciplines, and as an undergrad, you're going to have to get a general education in all of them. And so you're going to have to be able to master many different topics as well as you can in a timely fashion to get out. So it really shows that you've got that get up and go attitude, and you can take on some big challenges and learn what you need to learn to get by. So that's point number 3 as to why is it a good thing to get that undergrad degree. Another thing is that getting a bachelor's really shows that you will have had some experience working on a team, and specifically I'm talking about study sessions, because a lot of times it's very effective for people to form study groups and get with your friends or your peers and to divide and conquer problem sets, or study sessions for big final exams or whatever. If you've got to study 10 different sections in a textbook, if you could get 2 of your buddies to learn some other sections while you work on the other, you can do a lot more in parallel than you could individually. And so that part's very important. Another part is that being able to pass your classes means that in some capacity you're getting along with your superiors, namely the professor or the grad students you're going to be working with. So if you're someone who is a total jerk, and your professor hates you, they can find ways to make your life very challenging and maybe even fail you. So the fact that you are passing these things is very good to just show someone that you were able to do it. Another thing is if you're at an institution where they offer research opportunities, getting that research under your belt can be pretty useful. So, at Berkeley, I got a chance to do some like computer science and some engineering and like product development in the labs that I was working in. And so that's stuff that I otherwise wouldn't really have gotten had I not done a 4-year program. In addition, and this is kind of like a little bit of a dark point, but it is a pro to getting that college degree, is that there are a lot of employers out there who are very biased. And, I will say, based on my professional experience, I've seen a lot of people where it's binary, it's Boolean, in that, like, if you do not have a PhD, then you will not be a scientist. You just will not be a scientist. You'll never. It doesn't matter if you only have an undergrad or if you don't have any degree. Like, they don't care how good you are at designing experiments or actually doing the work. These people are only looking at your college degree, and if your thesis is relevant to the kind of work you're doing, that's when they'll care about it. But if you don't have that, like, there are literally doors that will close because of it. And it's unfortunate because I think they are ruling out a lot of very qualified people who very well could do just as good a job as, people who have PhDs. But in our case, it is definitely kind of a bummer, but it is a fact of life in the professional world, is that, if you think about it from a manager's perspective, to them, they want to have the easiest question they can answer, in that, like, do you have a college degree? Yes or no? Do you have a PhD? Yes or no? I'm going to assume that if someone has a PhD, they're probably pretty good at designing experiments, because you will have had to design a lot of experiments to get that PhD. And so, like, without even talking to you or seeing you, knowing that you've got a PhD is kind of this thing that's telling them, like, you could be a scientist very easily in their company, or whatever. So there's a lot of implicit biases that go into having that college degree, and so this is one of the reasons why it's good to get a 4-year degree. And then another thing here, and this is kind of conditional, but if you are someone who paid for your own tuition, like I did, it is showing that you are able to handle financial stress as well as kind of balancing a budget, which could very well be applicable to a kind of job that you end up doing. And then, as a final point I'll make here, I will say that, and it kind of ties in with the first two, getting that 4-year degree is showing that you have mental discipline, or that you've really built on your mental discipline, and that you are goal oriented. So, if you're taking a class on quantum mechanics, whether or not you like quantum mechanics, whether or not you understand anything about quantum mechanics, that the goal of you in there is to pass that course, to learn the material that you need to learn to get that exam done. And so that is the pros of going to college. Now, to speak about the cons, because I want to make sure I have a balanced argument here, I'd say the first thing with college is that it's very expensive. It costs a lot of money in tuition to get these college degrees. It's also very stressful. So, if you're someone who is not necessarily keen on pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, college will be a tough place. Another thing here is that, a lot of people have college degrees, so you getting a college degree isn't really making yourself stand apart. If you were to look at all the job applicants for kind of like mid or senior level roles, like, most of the time these people, everyone else there has a college degree. So, getting that 4 years isn't really going to be making you be any entirely different from everyone else. And another part here is that, like, this kind of has to do with, like, your feelings towards the major that you've chosen. Is that, like, a few years from when you decided or declared your major, you don't necessarily know if you're going to still like it. So, a lot of people who go in to be math majors, can you necessarily say definitively that 3 years or 4 years from then, like, they still feel similarly about math? The answer to that is, it depends, and it very well could change, because we're all human beings that change over time. And so, to just assume that, you're going to love what you do every single day in your major is naive, in my opinion. And so it kind of ties back in with, it really requires a lot of mental discipline to get yourself through it. Another thing is that college takes a lot of time, 4 years of full-time work basically to get that college degree. And, this is where we can have a discussion about opportunity cost, because opportunity cost is comes in the form of, okay, well, instead of spending 4 years at an institution, you could have spent 4 years learning how to program. Why do a 4 year computer science degree at a college if you could teach yourself, the key things that you need to know to get projects done that you want to contribute to in like a few weeks on Code Academy or, Khan Academy or whatever. There's so many free online resources that, that opportunity cost in the form of time is very valuable, and you can use it to do things. And so that's a very important thing to take note of here. And in addition to that, I would say that if you are someone who is intrinsically a self-starter and you can teach yourself, I believe that you can learn every single thing that they're going to teach you in an undergraduate program online. I don't think there's anything in the classroom that they could verbally tell you that you couldn't just look up on Google. And, so that's kind of the thing here, is that it's like college isn't really, the point of college is not to learn all these facts. The point is to have the college experience, to have to build the mental discipline to tackle a complex challenge or a complex problem, to work with your colleagues, to be able to organize and host and join meetings and collaborate on a team to help deliver on a big project. Like, that is the kind of stuff that you get out of your college experience. The facts themselves are so readily available to everyone that it's not something that, I think you can justify the price of tuition in paying for. So that's an important thing. Another thing is that, the structure of a lot of these college programs is very rigid, and the rigidity varies by major. But in the case of like chemical engineering for me, a lot of it is predefined and required. So you're not going to be someone who says like, well, I don't want to take thermo, and I don't want to take quantum, and I don't want to take MATLAB, and I don't want to take that. Nope, you're required to take all those courses, whether or not you want to. And they're just required to graduate. If you don't take them and if you don't pass them, you will not graduate. So that could be a bummer for a lot of people who necessarily aren't too keen on this stuff. So that's another con. And then finally, if you're strictly looking at this from a utilitarian perspective of, I'm going to college because my parents and everyone I know says that, I'm going to college to get a job, especially what we're learning right now with COVID-19 is that there's no guarantees at all with any of this stuff. If your only reasoning for going to college is that, you're believing that it's going to get you a job at the end of the day, I'll burst your bubble right now and I'll tell you that's not the case, because with a lot of these colleges, congratulations, you've got that piece of paper, but everyone else has got that piece of paper, and, there's not necessarily going to be a job for you to do. Sometimes it's going to be just you, or, all the employers you're looking at aren't hiring right now because they've already got all the people they need, or they don't have budget for headcount, so they can't hire anyone else. So, we're talking about life now and the variance or the confounding variables of life. And so, having a notion that somehow I go to college, I'm going to get a job because of going to college is wrong. And so that it's really going to come down at the end of the day to you building up that mental discipline, whether or not you go to college, to be like, I want to have a job. What do I need to get that job? How do I start doing that? Being able to be that self-starter. And that's not something that you necessarily need to go to college for. That's something that in those 4 years that you could have been going to college, you could have been working on in your own ways and perhaps be even better because of it. So that's what I'm going to say about this discussion. Is it worth getting a college degree? I'll leave it there. The background on myself is I have a college degree. I did it because it felt like what I was supposed to do. And along the way, I feel grateful in that, like, I was able to sense that, even though there were some classes that I didn't really care too much about, I had a chance to learn all these new things about how, a quantum physicist is going to think about, the distribution of a particle in space. It's some pretty crazy stuff. It doesn't really apply to anything I do, but it's interesting to know about. And I wouldn't say that it's only applicable to quantum mechanics. I will say that, like, you see things, and just looking at quantum mechanics, like, you see these topics of like uncertainty also applying to people, because you can predict how a group of people will react to a given force, but you cannot predict how an individual person will react to a given force because we're all unique and there's no determinism. So that's kind of an interesting tie-in that I thought of while I was learning quantum, is that like it's not just atoms that are so unpredictable, it's also people and life. So that's how I'm going to wrap things up here. I hope this video is useful. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and thank you all for watching.